Let's take a look at some of these percentage problems, and we're not going to get into ones like sales tax and that sort of thing. That'll be more self-explanatory, and we'll have a section on that later. But problems that involve percentage. Now, when we take a look at this, um, let's see what they want us to do, and we'll just kind of go from there. Barry sits down and eats 60% of his 3-pound steak. For those not in the know, that would be 48 ounces. Um, Now, basically, if you have this idea of here's Barry and he sits down and here's his steak, he's not going to eat all of it, obviously. And so as a result, we've got to find out what, 60% of that is. So a little bit more than half is what he eats. And so what I'm shading is what would go away. Um, how many pounds of steak did he eat? This is what we're wondering. Well, that's 60%. And 40% of his steak is just sitting there uneaten. So if we could find out 60% of 3, well, that's just like what we've done. It would be the same as 0.60 times 3. That's what we've done in other situations where we need to find percent of the total. So 0.60 times 3 is 1.8. Now, since it's pounds, I could say, hey, Barry ate 1.8 pounds of steak. Now, if I switch the problem up a little bit and I say, how much of the steak did Barry not eat? Well, if he ate 60% of the steak, that means 40% he didn't eat because 60 and 40 is 100% of all the steak. So if I wanted to say how much did he not eat, well, I'd have to find 40% of 3, which is the same as 0.40 times 3. And 0.40 times 3 is 1.2. And here's where you need to see. If the entire steak is 3 pounds together, then adding 1.8 and 1.2, the amount eaten, with the amount not eaten would add up to be 3 pounds again. So it kind of makes sense. So when you read these problems, you need to find out, hey, do we want to find out how much Barry ate or how much he did not eat of the steak? So in this case, he ate 1.8 pounds of steak. It was 60%. So it's not a trick question there. But I just wanted to kind of set the table for what's coming down the pike. Now on this one right here, let's take a look at it. It's a leftover percentage problem. Sally sold 80% of her inventory of 180 blankets. How many blankets does she have left over? Well, let's take a look at this. If these are just, you know, blankets that she's got and each square represents a blanket, well, 80% is more than half, right? So that part of it would be 80%. Meanwhile, the red part over here would be the 20%. This is what was sold, and 20% would be left over. So do we really want to know 80% of 120? Because we want to know how many blankets does she have left over. This 80% was sold. That means it's gone, right? We want to know how many is left over. So really, we want to know 20%. So we just go, okay, 20% of the 120 is left over, so that'd be the same as 0.20 times 120. See the difference there? So 0.20 times 120 is 24. So Sally has 24 blankets left over. Now, if they said how many blankets did she sell, we'd want to find 80% of 120, but we didn't. It was just the leftover. So you just got to start to learn to read these story problems and find out what the percentage represents. Now here's type 3. Jeremy baked a tray of brownies, and I've got this square glass baking tray at home, or baking pan, or whatever you want to call it. And usually it's big enough to where I can slice the brownies into 3 rows, and each row has 3 brownies. And that's what Tommy did here, okay? And all the brownies are supposed to be the same size. Now, his little brother snuck in and he ate 4 of those things before Jeremy could find out. So Tommy got 4 of these, and we want to say what percentage of the brownies did Tommy eat. So that means we're interested in what percentage of these compared to the whole number. So Tommy ate 4. 4 were eaten, and how many was it total? 9. And if you're wondering, well, how's this going to help me? Well, we did the exercise of turning a fraction into a percentage. Well, 4 divided by 9 is what we would do, and we get 0.44444. You know, it's repeating. And now that we've got it as a decimal, we just slide this on over 2 spots. And that would be 44.4% repeating. So Tommy ate 44.4% of the brownies. Okay? And let's do one last question here. This one's still a type 3. You know, it's create a fraction of 500%, but it's got a slight twist. What percentage of the brownies did Tommy not eat? So here's, you know, square. And this time we're talking about how many were not eaten. Well, if Tommy came in and he ate 4 of the brownies, then let's count up the red dots for the not eaten. That means there's 5 of them sitting there. So since we're interested with how many were not eaten, there are 5 right there, you know, 5 not eaten. And there's 9 total. So we made the fraction, and now we just say, hey, what's 5 divided by 9? And it's 0.5 repeating. You know, we turn that into a decimal, the top number divided by the bottom number. And then we can slide that on over, and that equals 55.5% repeating, because again, it did not say round. So we could say Tommy did not eat 55.5% of the brownies. So please just pay attention to the setup of the problem and read it very carefully, and that'll get you through a lot of the mistakes.